Maggie and Jacklyn, welcome back to the Scholarship GPS podcast. So excited to have you back again.
Oh my gosh, we are so excited. This has been the most fun thing that we've done, right, Maggie?
Yeah, I love podcasts. It's good to be back.
Awesome. Well, obviously we had a great conversation last time. Looking forward to continuing that. So we are towards the end of February when this is going to be coming out and people are hearing this. Um, let's talk. Well, first of all, introduce yourselves because people may not have heard you the last time you were here. So go ahead and give yourselves a quick introduction.
Maggie, you go first.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Maggie Finn. I'm one of the co-founders of Summit Academic Support with Jackie. We are both full-time high school teachers. We have been doing this for over 10 years each. But we also have a college counseling business and academic tutoring business. So we support students to kind of put their best foot forward throughout high school as well as in the college application process.
And I'm Jacklyn Angell, as Maggie said, a full-time English teacher. This will be next year will be my year 15 of doing this. And we love the getting to meet kids, getting to know the stories. And what Maggie didn't say that's really important is that we are gigantic nerds who are obsessed with all things statistics, all things anecdotal, all books about the college essay process. So we're fully invested in all things nerd in this process as well.
That's awesome. I love that. I guess I would be a scholarship nerd then.
That's a good thing, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know.
It's been good for our family. I've told my son's story a million times, but
Yeah.
it's been good for a lot of other families I've worked with too. So that's good. Well, one of the things that I think makes your business unique is that you both are teachers. You come from the classroom. How does that relate to or affect how you work with the students on the other side of what you do, the college admissions piece?
I guess the best way to think about this is I imagine that like if your son maybe had his favorite teacher, right? So
Yes.
like working with us, we always think about it as like it's as if your favorite teacher got to be your coach, your cheerleader, like throughout the entire process. And I think there is something to be said about the skills that are learned as a teacher that are so beneficial to this process, right? You
Mhm.
need to have that empathy. You need to have that encouragement. You need to be able to read, to know when to push, when to pull back, the right questions to ask. And that's just the skill that we have that's innate within educators that we are
Yeah.
able to use that really gives that extra oomph to this process. I think many people can come in with the admissions experience, which we also have, and can come in with all that knowledge and the certifications. But the ability to speak and communicate and engage with kids is huge. And like that's our favorite part about this. We love doing that. And I guess our favorite part is getting to know like the holistic perspective of the child. So like we like the GPA is important, sure. And like their
Sure.
SAT, ACT, those all of those things are important, but it's getting to be able to see the holistic perspective of the child and authentically represent that in the application that's the best part. And so that's really where our skills come into it. And then I think our favorite part about our business model, I guess, or the way that we approach it, Maggie, you can say what you want about this. This is my favorite part, is that we do live sessions. We don't just like we do the asynchronous edits back and forth, but we value that FaceTime with the kids. We make the kids turn on their cameras because it is important to like see their facial
Mhm.
expressions, right? And so I guess this year, I guess, this story kind of like elucidates sort of the importance of it. That I had this one student who was really kind of reticent at the beginning and was a little withdrawn, and there were these really long pauses in the sessions. And of course,
Mhm.
like I start to get nervous. I'm like, oh gosh, why are we pausing? And, as we built up through the multiple edits and throughout the entire process, she was like a bit more chatty and a bit more chatty. And then at the end, she sent me this beautiful email that was like, I just want to thank you so much for like letting me like take my time to
Mhm.
process through to like
Mhm.
really get to be able to think about this. And
Yeah.
that's my favorite part, right? Like if we hadn't done this in the live sessions, we wouldn't have had that. So I don't know. That's what I have to say. Maggie, what do you want to say about it? I know you've got something to say.
I think that's like the most important part. And like, Dave, I'm sure you find that too when you're working with kids, right? Where it's just like, oh, that like live, that moment. And like, it's not like, right, it's the live sessions. But I think for us too, the more that we've done this, the more we've realized it's a cumulative time, right? We're like, there's
Yeah.
a time where a kid didn't tell me till like our 5th hour meeting together. He's like, well, I created this app. And I'm like, hold on. Like, I've had you fill out an onboarding form. I've looked
Yeah.
at your like transcript, your resume, and we've talked so much. And then it just like comes out and you're like, oh, okay, well, like, thanks for sharing. Like, I'm glad that came out. So that's
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
it too, I think.
That's funny. Two things about that. So one, I wonder if we worked with the same kid because
Yeah.
I worked with a kid who, like, for several months, and he was going into computer science, and it was like 3 months in, and he's like, "Well, I developed these two apps that are on the App Store," and I'm like, "Wait, what?
What?
Why is this not in your essays? We need this to be in there." So that was funny that you brought that up. But yeah, more seriously, I was going to mention that kind of long runway, the longer you can work with a student and get to know them really so much benefit to that. At least I find that, and I would assume you guys do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I think like it's really helpful to have that context. Like the
Hmm.
more that you're working with a kid and you know, oh, this is what their brainstorming process looked like. This is what their story looked like. So it's like I think another piece where that comes in is like when I'm giving kids feedback or like pushing them, like we've read thousands and thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands. I don't want to think about it combined of like teenage writing, right? Like of
Yeah.
like responses that we've had to grade for our full-time jobs.
Hmm.
Although this is also becoming a full-time job. So our two full-time jobs. But we know how to give feedback that makes sense and that's actionable. So like for me, instead of being like add more detail here, like that would have sent like teenage me into a spiral and it's like
Right.
stressful for kids
Right.
too. So it's like instead I can be like, hey, what about that trip you took with your grandma before junior
Yep.
year? Can you like weave something in from that there?
Yep.
And they're like, oh yeah, but like it's because I know that and have talked to them for so long and worked with them for so long and like comprehensively that I can do that. We had a kid who like I knew her favorite animal was a red panda and she wanted to write about that. And so I'm like digging deeper and we were able to like connect it to all these other things she had told me throughout like
Hmm.
3 or 4 sessions. So I did not know this, but did you know that a red panda is not actually a panda? It's
I actually did know
you
that.
did. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yep.
you're also a red panda nerd and not just a scholarship nerd. Well, I
I'm
had
just
no
I'm a like a
idea.
trivial nerd, I think.
There you go. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
no idea. So it became this whole essay that was like, okay, what is like the danger of labels and how does the red panda defy labels? But then how does she, like, she is dyslexic, but how does that not define her? And it's just, it was so cool. And you're like, that's the kind of stuff that helps kids stand out too, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you think
Yep.
about this in scholarship pools
Yep.
of like, there's a lot of applicants. So how are you different? It's not just an essay about your favorite animal. It's then this like labels piece, which is so cool. And that little fun fact and how you can turn that. And that's the
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The red panda was just a symbol, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's like, I think that's the other part that like is a huge benefit to us being the educators is that you know how to phrase the feedback in a way that makes it actionable
Hmm.
and manageable for the different types of students, right? Like not every kid understands feedback in every way. And
Yeah.
so like our skill set is to be able to identify like, hey, this type of student needs like really straightforward and aggressive feedback, whereas this other student needs like an example that
Hmm.
they can then model their own thoughts
Yep.
off of. Like, and I think that's kind of one of our strengths is being able to recognize throughout the process of working with the student what type of feedback will give them the best results of their most authentic piece. Because,
Yeah.
like, I think there is this misconception that, like, if you work with an advisor or you work with an essay coach, they're going to write it for you, which is not true because I do not sound like a 17-year-old. I'm
Yeah.
just not that cool, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
understand what half of their words mean. So like
Yeah.
you have to be able to like create your voice,
Hmm.
help them to create their voice through your feedback, I guess if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
So, kind of riffing on that issue of sounding like a
Mhm.
17 or 18-year-old, does that mean things like proper grammar and spelling are thrown out the window?
Ooh, Maggie, you take this
That
one.
is such a good question. That's another thing that I answer all the time and I'm like calling families about when you see parents kind of panicking online or in Facebook groups or in our DMs about like, should my kid add a like comma error. And I'm like, no, 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 please don't do that. So I
So it
think,
doesn't get flagged by ChatGPT.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
does it get
yep.
flagged or like doesn't look like their mom wrote it or that I
Hmm.
wrote it or that an AI wrote it, whatever it is that like someone's concerned. I think what I say is like, first off, there's a difference between the best writer I've ever taught and like ChatGPT. And I
Hmm.
think I was thinking about this today. It is so hard to explain to parents and for people who aren't reading thousands and thousands of teenage pieces of writing a year, how easy it is to tell. I think you're one thing that one thing that I've also said is that it's super important to think about how the writing fits into the whole context of an application. So if a
Yeah,
student has a 1550 SAT score, like we're gonna expect them to have really strong writing.
sure.
But
Yeah.
like you're probably not gonna use a semicolon 6 times if like you're an average student
Hmm.
who didn't use any semicolons in any of your other answers, but did on your personal statement because someone edited that one. Like
Right.
it's like flags like that that just are incongruous with what everything else looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's another piece where it should be polished, right? Like they know that you have multiple opportunities to revise and lots of
Hmm.
time. Like it
Yeah.
should be a polished piece. I think the grammar, there should never be a grammar mistake. There should never be a spelling mistake. Like that is what the little squiggly red line is for in
Hmm.
Google Docs.
Yep. Yep.
But I think like one of the things that we push kids for is like this doesn't sound like you or this sounds inauthentic or sometimes it's just even if they 100% wrote it, sometimes I'm like ChatGPT could have put out this line. I know
Uh-huh.
it
Yeah.
didn't, but like this could be any kid who's interested in engineering, but I know you've done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like why don't we put that in here because no one else has done that or no one else has
Hmm.
came to it that same way. So it's sort of like I think the people get caught up in the grammar piece and that's not a huge thing. To me, I think it's so much more about like word choice and voice and specificity
Yeah.
of like, well, a robot wouldn't know this, or like your mom would write it that way, but you wouldn't say it that way, kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Right.
And that I think comes into, I know Maggie and I both worked with students where we either like did their core essay, their personal statement with them, and then like they drafted like their supplementals or like I guess mostly we worked with students where like we were reviewing, I guess this is probably preeminent in my mind because this is what we've been doing the past 3 weeks is looking at supplementals
Hmm.
that the voice is so discordant from what from what their
Yeah.
common app
Yeah.
is. And so that's like the benefit of working with someone from the beginning is to draft everything together because that is one thing that admissions officers do notice is that if the voice is drastically different in
Hmm.
your essay versus a supplemental. And so in working with someone from the beginning, you get to have, as Maggie said, that specificity, that voice, that authenticity throughout the application, as opposed to just like in one random Yale supplemental, which doesn't really help you in the end, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. Well, you mentioned, the supplementals and of course the core essays that you guys have been working on. We're kind of coming out of one season, class of 2026, graduating class of 2026. What's maybe something that surprised you that parents or students needed this year from you that I don't know if maybe you didn't see in past years?
So I think the, and I'm sure you see this, Dave, that like the financial landscape is
Mm,
so different,
hmm.
right? And I think in many ways, families like they don't know what they don't know. And that's
Right.
not necessarily their fault, right? Like
Yep.
whether it comes to the applications, like what they need to put on the applications, or like the pricing that comes within it, or like when to apply for the scholarships. And so it feels like this year was more convoluted in the type of information that families needed. And we
Mm,
always felt like we were a few steps behind in giving people information, right? Like as if I wish that we could have just like captured all of the 2026 parents in like January of last year and been like, hey,
yep.
here's what we need to tell you now, right? Like, I felt like that was sort of the thing that everything has changed so much,
Hmm.
in the financial landscape, that everything is much more difficult. And I think, in the time that we're recording this, in January, it's just before, or excuse me, in December, it's just before the January deadline. And so students are realizing, like, oh my God, I still have 35 supplementals to write. I
Hmm.
should have started this earlier,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yep.
know you must feel that with the scholarship game too.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess we just wish that we had like told people ahead of time. Like if we had just given them more time, more information ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And Maggie, I'll let you jump in a second, but just talking about again, kind of that long runway. Um, Things don't get less hectic senior year, right? Like
No.
junior year seems pretty hectic, and it can be, especially because that's kind of prime time for testing. And then some students will be doing APs towards the end of the year, but like it's not going to get better, come
No.
August or September, October. It's only going to get worse, and so starting earlier is just going to make your life easier, both as student and parent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I think the other piece, and I'm sure I know this is true for scholarships, even though I'm not the same level of scholarship nerd, is like starting earlier isn't just about making your life easier. And we are here for that. We are here for less stress. Like we are here for like demystifying the process. That is what we care about. But also it makes your application stronger, right? Like it makes
Yeah.
it more likely that you're gonna get the scholarship award
Yep.
or that you're gonna get into the school because like no matter what, in the next 36 hours, like you're not going to submit the best 31 supplementals to every Ivy
Yeah.
League that you decided to apply to last minute, which we don't
Right.
recommend doing as it is. But that's
Yeah.
besides the point, right?
Yeah.
Like I have two twins who are amazing. I worked with them for a push, then SAT English, and then their entire college applications, which was such a cool process. Like it's just so valuable to get to work with kids for so long. But I don't think they loved it, but their mom, who's amazing, shout out to her, made them finish their work within like 3 weeks of going back to school in August, and
Mm-hmm.
they were done.
That's
And
awesome.
like, I just am like, so that is like what I want for every family. And I
Yeah.
know that like we're trying our best, as are you, to like get the information out there, right? Because families
Yep.
don't know what they don't know. It's
Sure.
changed
Yeah.
so much in 5 years. Like more kids are applying to more schools. It's so much more competitive, all of the things. But there's like a lot of noise out there too. So I think I love conversations like this because it's like, okay, how can we cut through that with people who know what they're talking about and who are
Mhm.
excited to help people and get that information out there? Because I think like, I mean, it's like the teacher nerd comment, right? Where it's like knowledge is power, that you can do stuff with your knowledge and make choices
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I think too that I imagine there'll be some students that'll listen to this, but primarily like parents, right? And I
Yeah.
think
Yep.
from a parent perspective, you know that this is the best thing to do, right? Like your
Hmm.
frontal lobe is fully developed. You
Right.
know how to like plan and process, but your teenager doesn't.
Yep.
And it's so difficult. Like we're there with you. Like we deal with teenagers all the time. But if you can make them understand, like, hey, if you give up like 3 hours for 5 days a week out of the month of July, you can have every single senior event. You can make your senior jeans, you can do the senior sunrise, and you won't have to be worried
Hmm.
about these at like if you can make it as direct for your child as possible that like get this done, get it done before you go back to school, and it's going to have a better outcome for you, and it's going to make your senior year so much better as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And maybe if you get things done in August or September, you can apply for lots of scholarships in the fall,
Yes,
right? Yep.
Yes.
exactly.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yes,
Yep.
please.
And I
Yeah.
think like I'm thinking about this as well, Jackie, when you were saying like, okay, well, what do you want to say? Like, what do parents want to tell their students? But I also think like what I would say to parents and what came up, we should know this, but so much this year was just like they won't listen to me. They need this like other outside, like neutral third party. Not in a like super high conflict way, but just in a way that's like parents have just been like, it is so nice that it's like we're looking to Maggie or we're looking to Jackie for this feedback and like this
Yeah.
gut check on like, hey, this essay sounds off, or like, hey, is this the right school to add for our early decision two application? Or like, should they submit the test scores to Clemson? Like whatever it is. And I think like for families who are able to like finding resources is so helpful because it's a lot of work and it's so worth it. Like it's so rewarding partially now and then also partially in March when we start hearing more decisions back for kids to be
Right.
so excited and so grateful and so happy about like what could happen for them next year and what the rest of their future is going to look like. But so it's worth it, but like I think it's just so much more work even than when I applied to school
Hmm.
however many years ago. Like it's changed so much in just the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so that was some things that were maybe a little bit different this year or unique. How about something that kind of stayed the same that you would want to reinforce, that's you've seen over, at least over the last few years, that we anticipate is going to be the same this year as well?
Okay. This is so I like this is my dream job, right? I get to talk to kids about like developing narratives and like talking about themselves. But that's what never changes is that
Hmm.
students need so much support in how to talk about themselves, how to develop themselves. And it sounds so almost counterintuitive because you're like, kids are always posting pictures of themselves or they're always talking about themselves, but it's not in the same reflective, introspective manner that it needs to be
Yeah.
for the
Yep.
essays and for the writing. So I think that it still remains that students need as much support. Okay, but then here's my nerd teacher moment is that students aren't reading and writing
Mm-hmm.
as much in school, and this is to no fault of their teachers whatsoever. It's like the pressures of everything that there is, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to have students find the stamina to do the amount of drafting and revising that needs to be done in order to do this process well.
Uh-huh.
I think
Yeah.
in high schools, teachers are so belabored with how much work they have that it's unrealistic to have
Hmm.
30 students in a classroom write a paper every week, right? There's no way teachers can do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so then you're asking kids to draft. Yale has like 7 supplementals,
Mhm.
plus the Common App. There's just so much writing and revising that needs to be done that like we're really working with students to kind of develop that revision skill set that they don't have, especially reflective in like the narrative sense with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Um, I worked with a kid who had drafted an essay and I met with him. It was like one of those crazy things where mom called me on like October 28th for like, no, it might have been the 25th. It might have been a little, we'll give it a little bit of time. Might
But
have
you
been the
did answer the call.
I did answer the call. I did answer the call. She was lovely. And so I met with her, and when I first met, the essay was like very personal to a degree that we were like, no, you can't be sending this. And it was like he was trying to get to like the reflective, but it was more like woe is me kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Yeah.
met with him. I was super lucky. Like we managed to make it work that I met with him 3 times. And in the end, he wrote this crazy beautiful piece about filmmaking and
Mm.
trees and like his like self-development throughout it, and it was amazing, and it was like all his ideas, but like it came through the process of like talking through it and working on it. And I just think to myself, like, what could that essay have been if we had started it in June, right? Like,
Yeah.
what could that
Yeah.
have been? And he did email me, or his mom did, which was so cute because we loved his mom. His mom emailed me and said he got into UF, which was like
Oh,
his dream. So it was like one of those like great moments. But I just kept thinking like, man, maybe we could have gotten him some merit, like if we had started earlier with that
right.
essay.
Right. Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So.
Maggie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been, I mean, this is why we love teaching, but like we work with all types of students,
Mhm.
right? Like there are students coming to us and I see their scores and stats and I'm like, oh my God, like they're smarter than me, which is cool and awesome. And they definitely are. Um, and then we have students who are like really involved in their job or their extracurriculars and they're a solid average student, which is great. But like no matter who the student is, I think I've just found like everybody needs the support, which is not something I even probably would have guessed before I started
Mm.
teaching or doing this work. Like, a student can have really strong command of like how to write a paper for English, analyzing the Great Gatsby or whatever, but they still need like massive support to stand out and to show who they are and like to
Hmm.
provide that insight that the colleges are looking for. And like I have nowhere near any degree of like therapy or therapist skills, but sometimes it feels like you're really pushing that kid to do this reflective work
Yeah.
with you and be like vulnerable and open. Like one of my students, one of our questions, I don't even know how we got to this, but it was like her two favorite Starbucks orders. And I was like, okay, like let's go with it. Let's so we're in the session.
Mm.
And like it took a lot of time, but it like eventually became like what it symbolized like about her chronic illness. So what she
Mm.
went and
Mhm.
ordered like either had caffeine or was like one of the I don't even get Starbucks enough, was like one of the hydration drinks, right? Like
Okay. Yeah.
and she had this whole like essay about what it was going to be like based on like her journey and then like what she was going to order at the campus Starbucks
Hmm.
because she
Hmm.
had like learned how to take time, reflect, take care of her health, take care of herself, like all of these things and her journey that she had grown. And like super smart student, super well written essay about Starbucks. But like it was missing that like it didn't connect to her chronic illness at all or like why that mattered or like what that meant for her and what she
Right.
learned from it. And then like this line that was like you'll it wasn't like exactly this, but it's like you'll catch me at like the campus Starbucks, right? Like
Mm.
ordering my it was some long name, like with 13 additions and
Yeah.
a light ice and sugar and whatever. But like, it was like there's nothing wrong with the essay, right? It wasn't gonna flag on grammar or anything. And like it had parts of the things, right? Where it's like, oh, it's about Starbucks. It's not about like, oh, the time I broke my arm in a sports game or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
but it's just like the insights and the reflection piece is that what took time to come out. And I think like the best part of this is like all students have a story like that. I have no idea what it is. And sometimes I'm going into like, you've signed up to work with us. I'm like, I have no idea where this is going. And it's like a
Hmm.
little bit scary, but Jackie, I think we've done it enough now where it always leads somewhere, right? Like it comes out eventually. And that's like the coolest part, I think.
And I think our favorite part about working with students and working with them from the very beginning to think about like, okay, what schools are going to work for you? What's the major? What's the end vision for you? Is
Hmm.
it helps us to again like holistically represent the student. But I think if we could go back and we could like tell the students we got that group of 2026 and we got them all together, right? I think one of the things that I would say to the parents is like, you don't understand how important these essays are. Like, I think every parent believes that their child's like 4.0 and their extracurriculars and their SAT, ACT score is going to define them, but they
Yeah.
don't understand how many other kids have the exact same statistics and how fundamentally important this essay is in the process, right? Because that is where you can separate yourself from peers with similar data. Um, and that's why it's so important to start early, right? Tell your story.
Hmm.
Figure out like what I just sent an email today that was like, so the goal is you want to be like, how are you different? Like, is it because you really like collecting spoons or you taught yourself to juggle knives? Like, I don't know. What is it that's about
Yeah.
you that
Yeah.
needs to separate you? Because that's what they're going to remember. Maggie has this great line about like, you want them to like, I don't know, what is it? Be at the dinner table? What is it,
Oh, yeah,
Maggie?
yeah, yeah. No, well, I probably talked about this, oh, maybe last time we were on the podcast, but one of my, I just learned, well, the red pandas I didn't know about also. But also, we had a student last year who, like, she wrote her essay about tattooing rabbits. And what you want is, like, you want the admissions officer to go home and say to their spouse, I read an essay about tattooing rabbits today. And this student wants to be pre-vet and has spent their time doing XYZ. But like the tattooing rabbits piece is like what sticks because of all the things this
Yep.
amazing student talked about like what that means to her and what the impact she's going to make, like for the ways that she cares for animals. And okay, so they're telling their spouse, yay, that's cool too. But then they're going into the admissions committee meeting
Right.
and they're
Right.
advocating for you out of the, even if there's, I have no, seven pre-vet students with similar stats to you, right? It's like, no, this student like has you can just picture them right in front of you and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want the admissions officer and admissions like team to be like no we really hope this student comes and you need to give them something to say in that
Hmm.
meeting in a sentence or two that's like no we need to admit this kid because they have to come here and do because they're XYZ and they're going to do XYZ here and like
Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
make our community a better place they will have like an impact on the world because of the education that they can have here like you want them to be advocating for you. And like, that's how you need to package this. And like, If we can look at an application and be like, I'm not sure what I would then take from this and go say to my 12 colleagues around the table, like, then we can rework, which is fine. Like, that's possible, but you got to have time to do that, right? Like, in like a moment and understand that that's the goal.
Yeah. Just a couple things that both of you said. One was you both used the word introspection, and that is something that Jacklyn, you talked a little bit more about that. That students are really not used to that kind of writing. They're used to writing, a literary criticism of Great Gatsby, like you said. But when it comes to writing about themselves, they don't get much practice at that, and so this is something that's very new.
Yeah. It's and it's such a challenge also. I teach honor sophomores, and every year I have them tackle the college essay. I give them the
Mm,
list of the Common App, and I
mhm.
say to them, okay, you're all gonna write two of these right now. And they're gonna be, I tell them they're going to be shit, right? Like I'm like, these are gonna be so bad. You're never gonna submit this, but this is your first attempt. I want you to like get exposure to this. Like, what
Yep.
does it feel like? What do you know you need to grow with? How can you keep working on it? Like, what ideas did you have that were great? And then I often work with them again when they're seniors and they're like, oh my God, mine was so bad. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, but
Yep.
aren't you glad that you wrote the bad one when you were 15 instead
Yep.
of when you were 18, right?
Yeah.
Um, because it's not it's like a cruel trick that like the educational system plays on kids is that like the most important piece of writing that they'll do in high school they don't practice it at
Yeah.
all. It's
Yep.
just like this cruel trick that's played, and they don't know how to structure it. I mean, they're like, okay, so should my first paragraph be an introduction and like how much textual evidence? But no, like you can't do that. And again, like, I think without going too far off, like society is in many ways superficial. And that makes it
Mhm.
increasingly difficult for them to have that honest level of introspection that's
Yeah.
necessary to write an authentic and genuine piece.
Yeah, I love that you're having your sophomores do that. I mean, if you, for extra credit, want to have them write a scholarship essay, it's a
Oh my
Way to
great,
gosh, I
go,
should
Jackie.
do that. Oh, we could. Oh my gosh, we should do that. My kids would be all about that, Dave. We should do that. We should have my kids do it. We'll have an English 10 honors, Dave the scholarship coach. Like, oh, that would be so fun. We should
we'll,
do
we'll
that. They'd
we'll
love
talk
it.
offline. I have an idea
Yeah.
of a good scholarship for them. So
That would be
yeah,
great.
yep, cool. Well, we're kind of coming up on time, so I did have one other question because because of the time of year, we're kind of shifting out of class of 2026, moving into current juniors class of 2027. What should they be doing right now? I mean, I think we've probably stressed that the long runway is important. But here we are around the end of February for these juniors. What would maybe the ideal situation be? And then, we can kind of go from there.
Okay, surprising answer, not writing their college essay. That's
Okay.
not what they're doing. Although
Okay.
I will say end of February is when the Common App usually releases the prompts for the following year. They have
Right.
not changed in multiple years. It will not be a huge piece, so nobody needs to panic about that. I was just thinking when Jackie was talking about reflection, like kids need time to reflect and think about what's important to them and what they value. And that's what we do with our comprehensive clients that are starting with us January 5th or February or March or April is like we do some of that reflection, right? Like what kind of learner are you, right? Like what do you value? What do you want in your college experience? What kind of like career or experience do you care about? Because I mean, we know this long run, but like maybe they're eventually going to probably write a why do you want to do this major essay, right? So it's like
Yeah.
we see the full picture, and I am not showing that to a 17-year-old kid in February or March, right? Like it's like this is all that we have to do. But I'm asking those questions and reflections, and there's tons of great resources out there. We have some free ones on our website. We have our free webinars that we do usually once a month in the spring season because it's such a busy time for parents looking for questions. But like that kind of reflection work and being really thoughtful about like what you care about, what's interesting to you, what do you want to know more about, all that kind of stuff is the work that we take. And we have this whole body of work from, February, March, April, May. And then we sit with you June, July, August, and we crank out the Common App and the personal statement and your activities list. And like all of our class of 2027 clients have agreed to have their personal statement and Common App done by August 1st, which
Okay.
so excited for that for them. Um, but like but that would not be possible without that runway of the reflection and the questions that they'll
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
work with us and answer now.
Yep.
Because like that's ultimately what makes the strongest pieces and strongest applications is like the thoughtfulness and like care that goes into it. And we structure that early, right? Like
Hmm.
February, March, April. Okay, what do you? They don't know. Like you're like, I just feel like this is the next step is college, which is great. Like it's a great opportunity for a
Yeah.
lot of students. But thinking a little bit deeper about why and what they want to get out of it and what they're interested in, that kind of stuff ends
Hmm.
up being so core to crafting their like story.
Okay, and then here's my like old lady mom advice. I want them to go and do something. Like I
Hmm.
want them to get a job. I want them and not like
Right.
don't just be doing things just to put on your activities list.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I want kids to like go for a hike. I want kids to like go get a part-time job or to go and do something. Be involved, be interactive, be engaged. You have to have something to write about.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
Yeah.
you can't write a very good essay on Call of Duty. Like you just can't. And like you know, you
Or
have
calculus class, right? Like,
yeah,
or even
or
the academic
calculus.
side, or like
Like
how many
you
hours you spent studying for the SAT. Like, not like amazing. Love that. Like, it's so important that you have a strong score that best represents you for a lot of situations. But like Jackie's so right. That's okay. So do my reflection. And then once you've reflected and found your priorities, go do something in that. So then you have stories to tell. Like, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to
Yep.
be prestigious or competitive or anything, right? Like, go hang out with your grandpa at the nursing home and like make friends and play some crazy game. And then
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it can be anything. It does not need to be crazy.
yeah, just
Yeah.
live so that you have something to reflect on. Like that is probably that's the hardest client that we have to work with is the client who has been so focused on building their portfolio and their resume that they
Hmm.
haven't lived, right? Like we
Yeah. Yep.
I mean that is so important. Like I think the kids that we've had that have gotten into the schools that they wanted to get into were all kids that have lived full lives, that have
Hmm.
written great pieces. And they're not necessarily from like families of extensive means where they've done like volunteer trips in Belize. They're
Right. Yeah.
like I worked with a girl this summer who this is my probably my favorite essay all year that she goes to like a well-to-do school but her mom made her get a job over the summer
Mm-hmm.
and she applied to 30 places. She lives like, you know, in New England. She applied to 30 places and the only job she could get was at McDonald's. And
Okay.
so she wrote this essay that started off with like I got a job at McDonald's and it wasn't because I wanted to like build my resume or like offset it. She was like, is the only place they would hire me. And so she
Mm-hmm.
like wrote this like hilarious piece about how she worked at McDonald's and like she didn't try to make it like, oh, woe is me or like I'm so much better. She was just like, do you know how hard it is to clean an ice cream machine? Like you have no, you know, so that was like a great piece. And if she hadn't had that experience, she wouldn't have had that to write about. So like go do something. That's my
Yeah.
big
Yep.
advice.
Good advice.
That's fantastic. As you were saying that, I had a student pop into my head. And gosh, how do I even talk about this without revealing too much about the student? But like, they were very academically focused, and had the GPA and the test scores to show for it. There was nothing to write about in their
Yeah.
scholarship essays. It's like, okay, we're gonna apply for some scholarships where your high stats count, but like you said earlier, there's 1,000, there's 10,000, maybe 100,000 kids with those same stats. So really, this is going to be a roll of the dice, and
Yeah.
having something to talk about, getting out of your bedroom, off of TikTok, off of Call of Duty, and going out and living in the real world is really, I mean, it's crucial for your mental health.
Yeah.
You're going to learn a lot of things, and it's going to help you get into college and maybe win some scholarships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimate goals, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Well, this has been awesome. So glad to have you both back. Anything you want to tell us about your business? Any changes this year, or even again, because people may not have heard you the last time. So just tell us a little bit about your business, kind of what you guys do, tactically, strategically, and the best way to reach out and get in touch with you.
Hey, that's all you.
That's me. I'm like running all the website stuff on my end, and I just updated everything. Got a new logo and everything this for 2026. So if you have heard this and you were like, "Oh my God, I don't know where to start," we will be offering free webinars for the spring, and that's a great way to like hear not the same information, but we have the same philosophy no matter what. We kind of dig in like, what does it look like to shape your story in today's admissions landscape? And then we offer consultation calls for parents who are like, I'm interested in knowing what this looks like. Like, how do I shape my student story? How do I support them to put their best foot forward, right? Because there's so much you cannot control in this process. You just, there's 100,000 kids with the same
Yeah.
4.0.
Yeah.
But like what I want for families is to feel good that their kid submitted the strongest application possible for who they are and what they
Yep.
care about, and that they end up with choices that they are happy with and excited about. And that is why we do this work. We will start with families, ideally as early as possible. If you hear this, email us today, summitacademicsupport.com. Um, to kind of start that reflection process and thoughtfulness about how to approach college admissions because it is absolutely insane out there. We have heard it for years as teachers, and now that we're in this world as professional college counselors as well, like we don't want this to be insane for families and to feel
Yeah.
stressful or unpredictable. Like we will bring that sanity to it for you and kind of talk you off the ledge, hold your hand, support your kid, be that cheerleader on the sidelines, and get you from we don't even know where to start or when to take the SAT, all the way towards referring them to you for scholarships and comparing like financial aid offers from
Yeah.
schools that they've gotten into and are excited about. And it's just so, so rewarding. And we do still have space in our class of 2027 crew. So we would love to have people sign on with us.
And
Awesome.
I think kind of like the biggest development in our business model is that we found we were not as helpful to students as we would have liked to have been because we were starting so late with them and
Hmm.
like so far behind in the process. So our business model has evolved more so that now we're doing like the complete advising package so that we can really help students to apply to the schools that fit them as
Hmm.
opposed to like having students, I had a student who was dead set on an ED to an IV.
Hmm.
And then it turns out she got a full ride to Fordham. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
that was a great, which if we had started from the beginning, I'm like, I wonder how much less stress this would have been. Like, if
Hmm.
we had really thought about like how we were going to structure or strategize this entire application. And so that's one of the things that Maggie and I realized and reflected on throughout this process is that we really need to start working with families earlier in order to be able to serve them the best.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I'll say amen to that, and it's the
Yeah.
same on my side too. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was just on Facebook earlier today. There was I guess a mom, I don't know if it's a mom or dad, asking about scholarships for sophomores. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Here's a
Yes.
Yes.
list, and by the way, last year one of my sophomores won multiple scholarships, 15 grand as a sophomore. I mean, come on,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then and then I'm like, oh my God, if they then came to us, like, end of sophomore year or whenever, and I'm like, oh my God, you already know you have 15,000. Like that, like can transform how you approach the process too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, having that in your back pocket,
Hmm.
um, gives you more options and gives you some confidence going into the admissions process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also one way to think about it financially is it's putting a little bit of money first to get you more later on, right? Like you
Yes.
must feel
Yes.
that so much, Dave, that it's like you put a little bit of money and then you get three times that much back. So it's
Yeah.
Or
like,
more. Yeah.
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 Yep. Yeah. And of
So,
course, I mean, I do want to say, obviously, nothing is guaranteed. And I'm sure you say the
We
same
have the
thing. We
same.
can't guarantee you're going to
mhm.
get into Harvard, but we're going to do our
No.
best to make it happen and put the
Yeah.
right strategies and tactics in place.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, this has been so great. Looking forward to having you on again sometime for round three. But
Yes.
in the meantime, give everybody your web address again.
Yep. So we're at summitacademicsupport.com, and that is where you can find us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much,
Awesome.
Dave.
See you, Dave.